Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate the invitation to join you and talk a little bit about education issues in Missouri. I thought for the purposes of this group it would make sense for me to try to connect this to three questions that I thought would be of particular interest to you. What do we know? First, what do we know about the workforce of the future that Missouri in particular will need? Second, how ready are we in Missouri for this future? And then third, how do we best prepare for it? So I will try to identify some issues connected to those three questions, give you a sense of where we are on some of them, and try to go through this fairly quickly so I could take some questions or comments if there's an interest in doing that. What's the workforce of the future? The first thing we know is, and there was some discussion of this earlier today, that after this globally synchronized recession that we've been in began to come back a little bit, the return has been uniquely slow. Jobs are returning very slowly. That unemployment rate still hovering above the 9% level. But as they come back, there's been a great interest in what sort of, in the future, what kind of situation will it be with respect to educational requirements for the jobs that do recover. And it appears, I'm going to talk a little bit about this with respect to the country and Missouri, that an increasing proportion of the jobs of the future are going to require some kind of college-level preparation. That seems to be an assumption that is widely embraced at this point. It has real implications for Missouri, but also for the country. It also is the case that even now, if you look at the effects of the recession, having some level of post-secondary attainment has been really good insulation against some of the problems. The unemployment rate for those individuals with a college credential is below 5%, about half of what it is for the overall rate in the country. What we know is that an insufficient number of Americans and Missourians have the college preparation necessary for the jobs that are projected for the future. And we also know that in most of those jobs, new technologies are going to be embedded in the requirements to be successful. So let's move a little bit to the are we ready and where the United States and Missouri stacks up with respect to levels of education. The projection is that by 2020, 63% of all jobs in the United States will require post-secondary education preparation. To put that into context, in the 1970s, that number was 30%. 30% of all jobs in the United States in the 1970s required some level of post-secondary education. What we're projecting by the end of this decade is that that will move to 63%. The study that has influenced the thinking about this the most is out of Georgetown University, which is called Help Wanted: Projections of Jobs and Education Requirements through 2018. So that by the end of this decade, there are two groups of people you're going to have to really be concerned about, and as far as their ability to participate in a new, increasingly information-based economy, and that is those individuals just with a high school education and those displaced workers, lost their jobs and are not now well prepared to take on new jobs. How does the U.S. stack up against a 63% requirement as far as college credentials? Right now, 40% of Americans, working age adults, have a college degree. By a college degree, I'm talking about an associate, a 2-year degree, or 4-year degree, or something beyond that. And here is where you begin to see a really interesting consequence of changes in the past 50 years. This 40%, and by the way, in Missouri, we trail that national average. We're at about 37 or 38%. So Missouri is a little bit behind the 40% national average. This is what has led nationally, as well as within the state of Missouri, to these goals being set about let's get to 60% of working adults with a college degree so that they are prepared for those jobs that are out there in the future. Let's boil it back now to Missouri with our 38%. What are the projections specifically for Missouri? The Projection is that about 900,000 jobs will churn in Missouri between now and 2020. That's a result of some new jobs being created and people retiring from the positions they hold now. So you're going to have about, if you look across this decade, about 900,000 job vacancies to fill, either through retirement or new jobs. 523 of those are projected to require a college credential. Fewer than 10%, only 88,000, a high school credential. So if you look at all of Missouri's jobs by 2020, it's estimated that of the about 3 million jobs you have in Missouri, 1.8 million of those are going to require some kind of college credential. That comes out to about 60% in Missouri. So our percentage is a little bit lower than what you find nationally, but really quite comparable.